86 is an anime adaptation of a light novel written by Asato Asato and animated by A1 Pictures. The story takes place in the far future during an ongoing war between the Republic of San Magnolia and the unmanned drones from the now fallen Empire of Gilead, known as the Legion. The Republic boasts about how they're fighting a bloodless war through the use of unmanned combat drones, known as juggernauts, but that is far from the truth. The harsh reality is that these machines are piloted by those that live in the nation's 86th district. The story is centered on the lives of the 86 that fight as a part of the Spearhead Squadron and their new handler who lives in District 1, a woman named Vladilena Milice. Major Vladilena Milice, commonly referred to as Lena, is one of the few people living in the Republic that rejects how the government has treated the people living in the 86th district. Lena strongly believes in the core values that the nation was founded on, but is long abandoned. Lena is stubborn, has a strong sense of duty and justice, and is single-minded in her goal of helping the Spearhead Squad survive. Throughout the first half of the season, Lena's friend Annette and her late father's friend Commander Jerome Karlstall tried to convince her that her efforts to save the 86 are pointless. Jerome is a perfect foil to Lena in that he counters her idealistic notions of changing the situation of the 86 with a more cynical and broad perspective. Annette is the head of the military's research and development department and is typically much more relaxed than Lena. The character acts as Lena's confidant and voice of reason. The captain of the Spearhead Squad is Shinne Nozen, referred to as Shin or his call sign Undertaker. Shin is the most reserved out of all the kids in Spearhead, but also very respected among his peers. In regards to his personal motivation, all I can really say without spoiling anything is that he's looking for his older brother. As Lena frequently uses a device called a parade to check up on the group of 86ers, a bond starts to slowly form between Shin and Lena. Initially, the rest of Spearhead don't think kindly of Lena and assume that she's just like the other citizens living outside of District 86. As I was watching the first episode, I kept wondering to myself, why does everyone outside of District 86 look so similar? The character designs are kind of unimaginative and bland. However, there's a scene in episode 2 that addressed that criticism and establishes a bit of the Republic's history and restructure. In the scene that I'm referring to, Lena is observing a lecture for new recruits. This scene was essentially there to dump exposition, and it's one of the few times in the season's first half where I wish they showed us what the characters were talking about. The scene would have been better if they added something to accompany the exposition, like a brief flashback, or at the very least a few still images. Anyway, it's explained that a law was passed years ago, and that San Magnolia was divided up into 86 districts, and anyone who didn't have silver eyes and silver white hair was forcibly relocated to the 86th district. I paused the show briefly and thought to myself, hold on, why does this sound familiar? And then it hit me. This was exactly what Hitler and the Nazis were all about. Blonde hair, blue eyes, master race, rounding up people, putting them in internment camps, in addition to something else which I won't spoil. That's all here. San Magnolia ain't nothing but futuristic Nazi Germany. This was the moment where the show got my attention. Asato definitely took inspiration from the horrific things that the Nazis did, but also the discrimination of other minority groups throughout history. She even does something unique with the main Legion threat, which introduces a disturbing psychological element in episode 5. I appreciate that the author did more with the intelligent machines rebelled against their creators trope that has been done to death in other sci-fi works. Officially, the 86 are not considered human, but instead humanoid pigs that fail to evolve. The dehumanization and oppression of those that reside in the 86th district has led them to despise the Albans, which they refer to in a derogatory manner as white pigs. 86 depicts racism in a way that seems authentic, and it truly shows how hatred breeds hatred. I like that at one point Asato touches on racist people who think they aren't racist. The author does an excellent job handling the theme and combining it with the war that the 86 are forced to fight. As I was watching this, I was reminded of how some black people felt being drafted to fight in a war in which they felt like, why should I fight for a country that doesn't accept me? While there are plenty of 86 that definitely feel that way, there is one character that felt the exact opposite of that, but I can't say who that is because it's a spoiler. Many of the members of the Spearhead Squad grew up in internment camps and have experienced both discrimination and the horrors of war firsthand. Some notable members of the Spearhead Squad include Anju Emma, Dieto Rekka, Karena Kukamilla, and Raiden Shuga. Anju always seems to be in a good mood on the surface, but tends to keep her feelings to herself. Karina is usually full of energy and is the most immature in the group. She really hates Albans and has a crush on Shin. Dieto is a snarky character who's often very forthright with others, especially Lena. Raiden is Shin's longtime friend and is basically second in command. He's the most mature kid in the group and is very supportive of Shin. Dieto and Raiden have some superb dialogue at the end of episodes 3 and 7 respectively. In general, the characters are likable and enough time is spent focusing on the group outside of combat to make you feel some sort of attachment to the characters. The show doesn't have enough time to focus on every member of the group, but every death has weight to it. Some more than others. Admittedly, only a handful is impactful, but that's mostly due to the amount of time spent on the given character. I appreciate that unlike certain shows out there, this war actually feels like it has stakes. I wasn't blown away by any of the action scenes, and to be honest, the CGI was an immediate turnoff from the very start. The mech designs were mediocre and uninspired, especially the different Legion drones. I wish they decided to go with hand-drawn 2D art instead of CG, but I understand that they probably went with CG for the sake of efficiency. I was mostly invested in the battlefield scenes, not for the spectacle, but to see the outcome and the effect it has on the characters. To be blunt, the majority of the action was serviceable at best, but also forgettable. In contrast, the 2D animation and backgrounds outside of those combat scenes look good. The soundtrack is fantastic and the voice acting for the English dub is solid. This show has two outstanding ending themes, Hands Up to the Sky and Avid. These songs evoke so much emotion and are very fitting for the series. In general, the music kicks up at the right moments and supplements any scene. Episodes are typically broken up into two parts, with each half showing events from the perspective of either Lena or the Spearhead team. Each episode is paced well and felt much shorter than the standard 22-minute runtime. It's worth noting that many episodes have an additional scene after the credits that often lead into the next episode. The shifting of perspectives is used effectively, especially in the after-credit scene for episode 10, which is a pretty emotional moment. The transition between scenes is smooth, and there's a nice juxtaposition between certain scenes or imagery that often highlights how quickly things go from peaceful and playful to stressful and dreadful for the members of Spearhead. One moment they're all having fun just hanging out, and then the next they're on the battlefield and a comrade ends up dead. This series is dark, but it does have its lighthearted moments that occur during scenes with Annette and Lena, as well as the Spearhead group interacting with one another. The conclusion to 86's first half is sad, but it's also hopeful, and it leaves Lena at a point where she is more determined and confident than before. The ending was great, and I can't wait to see what happens next. Overall, 86's first 11 episodes were intriguing, with its story and character drama carrying the series. The CGI action scenes and its handling of exposition are without a doubt its biggest flaws, but fortunately, other aspects of its presentation, such as its transitioning, soundtrack, and voice acting, are really good. I'm hesitant to label this as a much-watched anime since I haven't seen the second half yet, but I think it's safe to say it's shaping up to be one of this year's best new series. If you've seen 86, let me know what you guys thought about it in the comment section below, and as always, thank you guys for watching. I'm out of here. Peace.